Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Uh, if you're not in this part of the world, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining. If you're just joining, please mute your microphone. When you're not speaking, just mute your microphone. And yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And if wherever you are is afternoon, good afternoon to you, or good evening wherever you are joining us from. Welcome to WordPress Mina, the online meetup. And today we're going to be talking about WordPress plugin development. It's going to be an introduction. This series of meetup is going to be a two-part series, depending on how well we are able to cover in today's meeting. We'll continue next week for a continuation, and then we have an amazing speaker for today. He is Mr. Mujib. He is a PHP developer. He works with the amazing tech company JD Lab, and we are privileged to have him share with us today. And he'll be talking about introduction to WordPress plugin. So without further ado, we'll just get right into it, and then questions will be saved for later. We would have all questions taken, and there will be time to ask questions after his presentation. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Mujib, take it away. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Hope you guys can hear me. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, today we're going to discuss about how can you build your own custom plugin for WordPress. Uh, the issue is just before I get started, I would like to ask a question. Like, I believe every one of us understand how WordPress work, or let me just ask in such a way that is there anybody among us here that that have not used WordPress before? No worries. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay, okay, cool. Like what I'm trying to ask is there anybody here that's like maybe you have not used WordPress before? I just need to know so that I'll know where to actually start. Okay, okay, thank you, thank you. So let me just start from A. Like as we all know that what WordPress is kind of an open source project, and it's also a CMS like content management software that that we have. Though we have many of them, but WordPress is one of I think one of the biggest CMS in PHP ecosystem. So, uh, and as you all know that most of the content management software out there, they are built on some kind of programming language. Like we have many of them, and for WordPress is built on PHP. So which means many of things that's going to be built around WordPress, maybe like talking of themes, talking of plugins or whatever, has to be built with what with PHP too. So that's just one thing about what we're going to be discussing about today for today. So I don't know, but let me just share my screen. Um, So we're not going to talk like too deep. We're just going through the introduction and how you can get started and how you can build your own custom plugin. So here is the thing that you need to understand before you can actually start building your own plugin. First thing you need is that you need to know how does WordPress works, because sometimes when you think of build something around the software and you don't actually understand how the ecosystem of that software works, it will be something else, because you don't have knowledge about how this software actually work. So you need to understand how does WordPress works before you can think of way in which to build your own stuff around it. And another thing you need to understand is you just need to understand the basic PHP programming language, just like functional programming language and a little bit of object-oriented programming language in PHP. Then I think understanding HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is like optional. It's not a more that you must understand all this. Believe me, unless if you want to go deep into team development. Because if you want to do with team development, we all know that we're talking about the appearance of how website looks like, in which we all believe that for you to build a website, I mean, for you to design a website, you need to understand HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And that's why I made this part optional. So it's not the most that you must understand this, but you need to understand the basic of PHP, because a whole WordPress is built on PHP. So I'm going to take us through some stuff here. So before I go, this handbook that in which you can just click on the link. Let me share the links with you. Let me share the link. So you can just click on that link, then it will take you to the WordPress handbook, where you can get to understand some other stuff. Because most of what I'm going to be referenced to are from this handbook. And believe me, if you can go through some of it, they are just like a documentation. You're going to really, really enjoy it. So that's that. And secondly, like for me, when it comes to like development, like building on WordPress, I normally build on let's see, I normally build using local server. So I normally use local server because it's not that convenient when you can you guys hear me? Oh, okay, cool, cool. So um what's this? So I normally use local server to do whatever I want to do in WordPress, because that one is going to save me some times. So by the time I'm done with whatever I want to do, I'll just upload the whole project into the online server. So and doing that, I need to go to the WordPress website to go and download the software, then install it on my local server. And I believe once you do that, you're supposed to have something like this on in your um, the structure of your by the time you install it, the structure of your the whole WordPress should look like this. So by the time you do that, the structure should look like this. I think you can understand me. So and like for development, I use okay. Uh, I'm coming. I'm trying to share some other document. Let me share your whole screen. So okay. So what I'm talking about, I think I've talked about this handbook. So it's really help. Once you go there, you'll be able to understand some other stuff that I'm going to be talking about. Then secondly, when it comes to development, I did mention that I use local server, which is XAMPP for development in WordPress and some other thing when I'm doing stuff with PHP. So, and once you do that, I mean, if you don't have XAMPP on your system before, you can just go to the official website, just search for XAMPP, then here is the Apache friendly. That's the official website. You get to download the one that works for your operating system. Then after that, you install it, and I think that's all for the installation. So if you have maybe if you have any issue when you try to install WordPress, you can just send a message, and we're going to attend to you so that we'll be able to get run. Then the next thing is you go to the official WordPress website to download the software. You just go to get WordPress, then you'll be able to download this zip file. So once you do that, you just go to your inside your XAMPP, then you open your HT docs. Once you do that, you can just create a folder for your project, and you extract that zip file that you download into that folder. So that's because for me, I do organize my project that I'm using XAMPP for. So that's why I create a WordPress folder. Then inside the WordPress folder, I have different projects there. So one of them that I'm going to open is this floating. Then, so what I'm going to explain is like a bit of how WordPress works. When you are doing normal your installation, like your configuration, everything, you know that when you first install WordPress, I think there's one thing that normally when you try to install WordPress on all these cPanel hosting, there's one thing that you guys normally skip that make most of people don't that make most of people not to understand what's actually going on. Most of us use something we call subparticulars, and I think subparticulars is one of a company that's own like that gather a lot of CMS software together, in which they made it easy for you guys to install them without going through a lot of things. So what do happen is that during that kind of configuration, there is a lot of file inside your WordPress. So one of them is like we have three folders like WP admin, WP content, and includes, and the rest of the file. So out of them is this WP config. So this folder that I'm currently in, I've opened it using this Sublime Text. So if you open if you open your that WP config, you get to see that there's a lot of stuff inside it, and this is where the basic installation of WordPress happened. You understand? Because if this file is missing in your WordPress, you won't be able to run your software. You understand me? So if this file is missing, you won't be able to do that. So the only way you can do that is you get to see WP config sample file. This one is a copy of this WP config. So you can just duplicate this and rename it to WP config, and you get to move on with your project. So another thing is when you are developing, you need to change something here. There's something we call the WP debug. So this allow you, normally it used to be false, but you need to change it to true, because when you are developing, there used to be some kind of error during your development. But if this WP debug mode is turned to false, you won't be able to see all those errors. But once you turn it to true, any error that comes during the development, you'll be able to see that, and you'll be able to debug it and solve your problem. So another thing is that we have this WP include and WP admin. So the basic, the core WordPress function, the core WordPress function is being inside this WP admin and WP include. So you are not allowed to tamper with any function in these two folders. And why is that? Is that because number one thing is WordPress is an open source, as I said earlier, and anytime there's update, you understand? Anytime there's update and you try to update your WordPress, that's why WordPress normally give you something like if you go to this site, so there's this part where you can check for the update. So anytime there's any update, WordPress will tell you that make sure you back up your a whole of your software before you run an update. Why is that? If you try to change anything in these two folder, automatically by the time you run an update, the new update will override everything inside this folder, which means inside these two folder, which means if you have tampered anything inside there, then automatically there's going to be a problem when you are trying to run an update, and that's why. And so WordPress give you this folder, which we call WP content, to do whatever you want to do. By the time you open this folder, you get to have like 4 or 5 folder inside there. Like there's uploads, there's upgrades, there's themes, and there's plugins. So when you upload something, like let's say like you go to this part, when you go to your media and you had maybe you upload image or you upload any file. So anything you upload there is going to be inside this uploads folder. So which means at any point in time, maybe you lost some of your documents, you can just come to this upload and try to rearrange them. Then another thing is we have the themes folder, and this way anytime you install a themes inside your appearance, then you come to themes like this. So anytime you had a theme or you upload or you activate a theme, that theme will be stored inside these themes. And you get to see all the themes that I have here, which is I have abstract theme, DV, and 2021 themes, and I think you can see here. So another thing is, for example, now if you come to these themes and you delete one of the themes, let's say I delete this one. If I delete this one now, then if you come to this page, your theme, and you refresh, you get to see that that theme is no longer there. It's no longer there. So that's what WordPress normally do when you try to if you try to delete a theme. So WordPress will just go to that themes folder and delete that folder for you, so that that file will no longer be there. So, and where we are, like what we actually need to discuss about is plugins. So this is where we are going to be working on, the plugins folder. So these are all the plugins that I have inside my system. If you go to plugins here, let's say I go to plugins. So you can actually see, and this is the work of WP debug, because I turn it on. So if I have it now, let's say I just change it to false. So that error that I'm getting will no longer be there. It's just disappear. Yeah. So this is the list of plugins that I have. You can actually see this is the list of plugins that I have. So how do you start building your own plugin? So that's where I need to explain something about plugin architecture. So there's this stuff that WordPress normally follow, and it's a kind of guide that WordPress gives when you want to build your own plugin. But before I go to that, let me quickly explain something about why do you need to build your own plugin. That one is a question like you need to ask yourself as a developer, or maybe I'm a designer. So why do I need to build my own custom plugin where we have like tons of plugin in WordPress repository that I can actually use to solve any problem that I have? So one thing that you need to understand is that most of the time you don't need to build your own plugin. Sometimes you need to edit existing plugin to get what you need. And that won't do happen when you are working as something like a freelance and you get a client that needs you to customize a plugin, because most people do ask like, can you actually customize a plugin? So they will just give you a plugin to go and customize. And if you don't understand how to build your own custom plugin, you won't be able to customize any plugin out there. So that's just number one thing. As a freelance, you need to understand how to build a custom plugin, because sometimes you might need to customize a plugin. That's number one. Number two is that you might be working as a PHP developer in a company, and believe me, most of the companies out there are trying to build a solution throughout the content management system that we have. That's why we have like a plugin for page tag, in WordPress. There's plugin for Flutterwave and many of them like that. So they are not trying to just solve a problem within little ecosystem that we have, but they are trying to solve problem throughout every system that we have, just like we have for WordPress, Drupal, Shopify, and some other like that. So just imagine that one day you just get a notification from page tag that the application that you submitted as a PHP developer, we have actually considered you to be working with us. So at any times they can ask you that as a PHP developer, we need you to review this plugin for us and try to correct some stuff. And you are kind of like, I don't know how this thing works. Believe me, you can get sacked because of that, because they believe that you must actually understand most of these things, because most of them are working on what? PHP. It's not like a JavaScript that you need to go and learn another language. You understand? So that's one of the reasons why you need to understand how to build your own custom plugin. So, but one thing you need to know is that you can't just go there and build a plugin. Try to actually search for plugin before you decide to build your own, because sometimes you might be thinking that this is what I want to build, but the plugin that you can use for that is actually available, like it's available free that you can use. But you thinking like, because I know how to build custom plugin, you just go take some of your time to build your own, while you can actually go to WordPress and download the free plugin that's available for you to use. But you can actually consider build your own when there is no option for you, or when the option that you have is that you have to go and pay like tons of dollars before you can actually get the plugin. So that's just it about why do you need to build your own plugin. So the next thing I'm going to be talking about is like the architecture of what you actually need to follow for a standard plugin, what you actually need to follow. So for standard that plugin, and what WordPress actually explain how you can organize your file is that anytime you open if you open the plugin file, you get to see that almost all plugins are structured based on what? On folder. Because if you look at this one, you see have there's abstracting, all of the plugins there are structured based on what? Based on folder. And I think there's one problem here is that I'm the person that actually creates this folder, Hello Dolly folder, because when you install WordPress, it's only Hello Dolly plugin that doesn't structure based on folder. It only comes with just one file, which is inside plugins. I don't know, maybe you have actually noticed that before. It only comes with just one file, and that file it used to be inside plugins folder, this folder. So I'm the one that actually creates this folder for the plugin. You understand? So that's just it. So most of the plugins are structured based on what? Based on folder. Understand that? Believe me, say like if you are trying to deploy your plugin and you don't structure your plugin, because there is this community for WordPress that anytime you submit your plugin for deployment, WordPress will send it to the WordPress community, because most of the developer doesn't actually have time to sit down and be looking at plugin. So they will send your plugin to those community for review. And once they review it, they will now get back to you about what you actually need to do. So the standard of it is that you need to structure your plugin based on folder. Then, because if you look at this, you get to see that there's a lot of folder here, and if you look at Elementor, you see that there's a lot of folder, and I think everything like that. So that's just how you need to structure your folder according to what WordPress said. So let's say like I want to create another plugin. So you just click on this plugins folder, then you create a new file. Let's say UK. Then so this is the folder that I'm going to be working on for this event actually. So another thing is that for what WordPress actually said from they said coming. If you look at this structure of the file, you get to see that there is plugin name as the name of the folder. That's the first thing you need to understand. Like the first thing you need to do, you need to create your folder based on what the plugin is, the name that you want to give your plugin. Then secondly, you can create different folder for different things that you want to do. Mostly, if you want to actually build something that have something like admin page, you need to create a folder for admin, and for something like public, like for user to see, like for front end, has to be inside public. Then if you're kind of like, there are some plugins that support multiple language, where if you activate, there is this plugin for, I don't remember, that you can, once you activate that, it will translate plugin that supports multiple languages. So if you want to do with language too, you can just create a language folder there, then you get to do some other stuff. Then the next thing is that you need to create a folder, and you need to create a file inside your plugin folder. So you name it the name of the plugin, which is actually the name of the folder that you create .php. So sorry for that. I'm coming. So what we are going to do now is just I'm going to open this folder, then I'll have to create a new file, then save it with wp.php, and that you see that the name of my folder is mina /wp, and the name of my file is also what mina /wp.php. So that's how, like, the basic thing that you need to do when you are building your custom plugin. You understand? That's the basic thing that you need to do. Then once you go to your WordPress plugin, if you refresh here, if you refresh now, you won't see anything actually. Like, nothing is going to show here for you. So why is that? Why is that? Anytime you open your WordPress do run something like a loop through all those folder inside your WP content to see if there is actually new stuff inside it. You understand? And if you don't actually follow the normal process, WordPress will just keep that folder. You understand? WordPress will just keep that folder. So, and for you to follow normal process for building a custom plugin, so we have done the first step, like creating folder, creating the file. Then the next thing is that you need to write some snippets inside your file, which is like you write the normal PHP code like this. Write normal PHP code like this. Then I think that's how you can start writing your PHP, right? So, but the next thing is that what WordPress does is that after looping through all those folders, then it will check for the name of the file that relates to the name of your folder. You understand me? It will check for that name. Like I create Mina WP, then it will check for Mina WP.php file. Then inside it, there's this first thing that WordPress will check for inside that folder. So if that stuff is not there, then WordPress will not bring your plugin in. If that stuff is not there. So one of the things is that it's look for is something called comments. It's if you're kind of like I've been writing with PHP before, we have like two types of comments in PHP, like single line comments and multi-line comments. But in WordPress, they use WordPress use multi-line comments to do that stuff, like that snippet. You just do something like this. Coming. Okay. So everything you need to do has to be inside this. I don't know, maybe you understand me. Have to be inside this stuff. So you do something like this. So one of the snippets you are going to write inside this comment is something called plugin name. Do like this. So let's say what's the name of my plugin? I can name it anything like in WP. See that? Then if I go here, let me refresh again. Let me just scroll down. Can you see? You see Mina WP. So that's one thing you need to first do, because if you don't have that comment at the beginning of your file, WordPress will not actually recognize whatever you do inside the plugin. You understand me? So the next thing now is that, because if you look at each of the plugin I have, there's this something like there's this stuff like this. So how can you do this? Is that you come back, you say you put another comment that you say description, and let's say in WP event plugin. So if you refresh, you get to see the description, and I think you can actually see now. So the next thing now is that let's talk about fashioning. So when it comes to fashioning, most of the software being an open source, you need to have something like a fashion, like you understand. So how do you fashion your plugin? Because you can see that each of the plugin here have its fashion. This one is called description, and this is fashion, and this is the name of the author. There's author name. They will normally have plugin URL and author URL too. So if I come back, I just say fashion, then I can actually put something like 1.0.0. Then the next thing I want to have is author name. Say the name of the author is this. Then you get to put the author URI. So it says something like experience. Let's see. It's my URL. Then the next thing is you need to put plugin URL. Though putting plugin URL, you can just give it like you can just give it. Maybe like Git repository to that plugin, or maybe if you actually have a website for the plugin, you can just put the name of the plugin there. So I can say like top. So that's the basic structure of thing that you need to for your WordPress for your plugin to be recognized. So if I refresh here, so get to see this. Now there's one thing missing is this stuff, these few details. So if you are working, like if you are building your plugin, you understand, if you are building, like you just get started, like if you are in development, there's one thing is that these few details should not show. This will only show for plugin that's already deployed to WordPress repository. I think you guys understand. So, like, if you have any question about that, you can just drop the question and let's attend to that within like 1 minute or something. Okay, no question. There's one thing I'm missing here. It's supposed to be author, not author name, and that's why the name of the author is not shown here. Yeah, that's it. So you see the link that I provide, like Twitter stuff. So that's it, and this is the link to plugin. Like, if you have any question, you can just drop the question in the in the chat box, so I will get to answer some of the questions. So that's the structure of what you need to do. And another thing is that another thing that's very very important is this file on let me say it first uninstall PHP. So what this uninstall does is anytime you uninstall your plugin, any function inside this file will be called. And why do you actually need to put anything inside your uninstall.php? Is that most of the time you install plugin, a lot of them create a lot of things inside your database, in which by the time you uninstall them, that most of that file will not be, most of that stuff inside your database will not be deleted. So it will automatically be there without. So which means there's going to be a problem in the future. So, and in order to do something we call cleanup, so you need to have this uninstall.php file. So you just put any function that you want to actually do. inside there. You can just leave it like PHP here, then you write any function that you want it to happen by the time user uninstall your plugin. Okay. Okay, like yeah. So if you don't have, let me start from here. Can a description of an existing plugin be edited to just reflect on? Yeah, yeah. Or you just, for example, now let's say I want to change description of I'm coming. This is um this is Hello Dolly, and this is the description bar. So let's say I want to change the description of Hello Dolly. What I will just do is locate the folder of that Hello Dolly, and this is the folder. Open the file. Then you see this is the description. So what I will just do is come here, delete this, then change it to my own description. Like maybe let's say WP. Simple. Then you come back to your plugins here. Then you refresh, and you see it has been changed. So you can change the description of any plugin that you want. So far, because there's no way you want to do it. Let's actually go to almost all the plugins that I have there. There's no way you will do it. You have to follow the structure of what WordPress explained before you can get your your plugin to show. So you see all of them have plugin name, plugin URL, description, all of this. So you see if I open this one too, you get to see there's all of this inside it. And if I open this one, same thing happen. So there's no way you actually need to follow the standard of WordPress before your plugin can be listed in. You understand me? You need to follow it. And let me okay, let me send the links to the doc. I'm coming. That's the link to the that's the link to the documentation. Okay. Actually I want to answer some of the questions that we have here. I think I've answered the description. Then where and how do you start from learning custom plugin if no prior knowledge? Yeah, you can just follow this link, and though you need someone to actually put you through because most of the time documentation used to get serious sometimes because if you don't have someone to actually guide you how you can do it most of the time documentation used to get serious. So you need someone to actually put you through. And that's why I just shot my own slides based on what we have in that documentation. You understand? I think I've answered that question. So can I continue? Okay, thank you. So you see that almost all the plugins that I have follow the same structure, and that's it. And I think most of them do have. You see that in this virtual element, there's uninstall, and they call all these functions there. So this function will actually be called anytime there is like user uninstall your plugin. So now let's actually activate our plugin. So just go here, you click on activate like this. And simple. The plugin has been activated. Now, what happens when you activate your plugin? There is this something we call autoload in PHP generally, or let me say in software development. Like when you autoload a file, that means that anytime you instantiate your program, anytime you instantiate your software, all the plugins that are installed will automatically be autoloaded. You understand? So if you go to, let me open this, look, my database for you. I go to this, I'm coming new 14. Then you see this is the basic stuff that you're going to have inside your database. Then most of these things have a lot of things they are doing. Like I could actually remember like first time I started WordPress, I was like, is it possible that all these thing that we have inside the database is the one that WordPress are using to actually manage a whole system. It's serious sometimes, but by the time you try to check and you see by yourself, you will understand what is happening and how WordPress uses this to manage your software. So if you look at this WP option, you get to see that there's something we call Autoload column, and each of the autoloads, there's almost all of them are yes, yes, yes. So that's that. So I want to actually search for something here. Let me search. I want to search for plugin. Just click on go. This. Oh, okay. Yeah. So you see, I have like 1, 2, 3, 5. So what I'm concerned about is this active plugin. Can you see active plugin? So inside the active plugin, you see it's auto load, right? Then if I open this, let me just edit. You see, this is what we call something like a JSON when it comes like JavaScript or whatever you used to call it. So you get to see that all plugins that I activate, right, are mentioned inside this JSON file. So which means any plugin that you don't activate is not going to be mentioned here. And that's how WordPress recognize any plugin that is going to be uploaded every time you open your software. For example, now if I go back here and deactivate my plugin, and let's say I need to refresh this page, search for plugin again. If I open this now, this active plugin, you see that there's nothing like in WP again, which means like the future, everything has already been programmed there. So WordPress won't bother about the my plugin. Like WordPress is not going to load any function inside that plugin. You understand? But it will only load any function inside the plugin that are being mentioned in this JSON. You understand me? So that's just it about active plugin. So I can just go back, activate my plugin again. Let me just activate. That's that about the architecture of plugin, and I think yeah. So what are the things that you need to notice while you are building your plugin? What are the things that you need to understand? What are the things that you need to avoid while building your plugin? So one thing is that you need to avoid naming collision. What a naming collision is when you want to name your function, you need to avoid naming collision. When you want to name your variable, your class, so that it won't collide with other plugins, because you know we are working with a kind of like open source ecosystem where people build different things. So you need to avoid naming collision, like when you want to name your plugin or you want to name your variable, your function, then you need to follow procedural coding method. You understand? It's something like namespace, everything, something like that that has to do with variable function classes in the yeah. Then there is something called previous. This question, most of us are familiar with it, but sometimes you don't actually know. It's because you are not familiar with development in WordPress. When you want to, most of the like when you want to install your WordPress normally asks you that what is going to be the previous for your table for your database table. So mostly, if you don't actually give if you don't give a previous, WordPress normally use WP this WP underscore. You see that almost all of the table here have WP underscore. So because you can actually think like let's say you want to give someone like a rule to follow. You said you actually need to follow that rule. So WordPress has already followed most of these things. And you too, you also need to follow it when it comes to development. WordPress use default WP underscore as a previous. So you also need to choose, because by the time you open that documentation I sent to you guys, then WordPress will tell you that you must not use WP underscore as your default, because that is what WordPress use. So you too, you must not use that. You must use another thing. And to actually choose to actually choose previous, it's very simple. You get to choose previous based on the name of your plugin. For example, let's say I want to write a variable now, say the name of my plugin, or let's say I want to write a function in PHP. I'll just say function, then start with the previous. So the name of my plugin is WP, WP. I can actually say something like MWP. That will be the previous, then followed by underscore, then the name of my function. Let's say init. And once you choose a previous, always use that previous. Don't change your previous. You understand me? Don't change the previous. That's like a standard thing that you need to follow. Don't change your previous. Use one. You understand? That's why sometimes you need to think of which one you need to use. Don't just choose two or something. Always use one, because we're thinking of open source where people get to contribute to the plugin that you build. You understand? And if you're kind of like someone that use different previous, people get to confuse by the time they want to contribute to the plugin, or maybe they actually want to customize your plugin. You understand? So always use like one standard previous, and that's one thing about previous. Then another thing is that most of the time you need to check if what you want to do exists. For example, now most of the time you will choose a previous where someone has already used. You understand? Someone has used that previous before. But one thing you can actually, even sometimes someone might not use it, but you too, you have already declared that function. You understand? But maybe you are confused, or you don't actually remember you have write something like that. So there's one way in which you can skate through that, is by always check if that function exists or that variable exists before. That's why we have this function in PHP. There's this function exists. Then if you want to do that, you just use if statement. Then you put function exists. So this function exists always return something we call true. So you put the name of the function here. So what this function will do is to check if this function has existed before. If it doesn't exist, then it will actually, then you put your function inside there like this. You put your function here just like this. But you actually need to put not. Why is that? Don't forget I said this function always return true. That means if the function returns true, it will there's going to be something like a counteract, like it's going to counteract the function that has already existed before. So that's why you need to put first that, okay, if this function has not existed before, it should create an instance for this function in your plugin. You understand me? That's that. And if it comes to like maybe you want to use object-oriented programming, there's want to check for a class. But if you want to actually use something like a constant variable in PHP, there's something called define. The name of your constant can be, let's say, plugin. Let's say plugin name, and you follow. Don't forget, it has to be inside the column like this. Then let's say the name of the plugin is WP. So this one is don't forget, you need to also put your previous. Sorry, and this is my previous. So this one is a constant variable; it cannot be changed. You understand? It has already been declared at the time of instantiation, at the time of call. So you can't change the value. You understand me? So that's another method in which you can store something inside your plugin. Then, so I think that's that about the architectural method in which you can follow. Don't forget, I mentioned like if we are going to use something like CSS, HTML, JavaScript, all this file, you need to create a folder called public. Sorry. Sometimes some people normally use something called assets. You normally have something like asset folder where you get to store all your assets like JavaScript, CSS. You can just create something like JS. You want to create, okay. And just say JS and you create CSS. So you just store all your CSS, your JavaScript. You can create another folder for like image, set, and yeah. So you get to store your assets. And if you want to have something like admin, you get to create another folder like admin. Then for like user to say, you just create something like a public. So this the like the architecture method that you need to follow when it comes like building your own plugin. You understand? So the next thing we need to look at is hooks, hooks. So is that okay? It's just about the slide. Yeah, it's because like I need to actually use some other folder. I mean, okay. So what I'm going to be talking about now is hooks. Hooks. What is hooks? What is hooks? Oh man, yeah. Come in. So hooks are a way. Yeah. Hooks are a way for one piece of code to interact or modify another piece of code that's specific. Don't forget that I mentioned something like in WordPress we have like three folder. But coming. We have like three folder inside WordPress. There's WP admin, there's WP content, and includes. And I said that you see this WP admin and include, they are the core WordPress function. You understand? They are the core WordPress function. Now, how do we interact with core WordPress function? Because we want to build something around that function, and we need a way in which we can actually interact with them. So one way to interact with WordPress core function is by calling something we call hooks. Like I don't actually want to read all this English stuff, so that's why I try to explain what hooks actually is. You understand? So one way in which you can interact with WordPress core function is by calling a hooks. And when it comes to hooks, there is different type of what? Different type of hooks and the method in which you can call a hooks. So we have two type of hooks. There's action and there's features. You understand? There's actions and there's a features. And most of these two hooks, they are kind of like they're kind of something that receives something called callback function. You get it? There's something like they receive something called callback function. Do you understand me? So what is callback function? I will explain that later. Let's just go to so there's action and what? There's action and feature. So the main difference between action and feature is just that for action normally receive an information, but it doesn't return anything. I believe you guys familiar with PHP, like create a function in PHP. You know, in any programming language, you can create a function. A function can actually return something, while a function cannot return when you are creating a function in programming language. You understand? So now the two different things about action is that action doesn't return anything, but can receive something. But for filter can receive, modify, and also what? And also return. So which means filter is a kind of function that accepts parameter, then returned output. You understand me? That's all about the English that you see in the screen. That's just all about the English here. So yeah. So let's look at how action looks like. This so action I don't actually want to say much about English. Like let's just look at how you can do that. So for example, now if I come to display, I have this function wp m WP underscore init. Then if I want to hook this into an action, I'll just do something like add action. Then this is how you can create an action. This is an action. This function is an action. Then hooks function like receive two things. The hooks that you want to call. The hooks. I want to call init hooks. Then the name of your function. This is the name of my function. This is the name. Now I said something about callback function. Because if you look at my slide here, you see this. Now this thing, but let me come here. So I want to copy this. Then you do it. Now what I do here, you can actually do it in all PHP functions. You can only do it from, I think, from PHP version 7 and above. Like it allows you, like, because I made mention of callback function, right? So callback function is some kind of like where you get to pass anonymous function into a function. Just something like this. Just something like this. This is a callback function. Understand? But as from PHP, I think 6, 7 and above, you can just create that function somewhere and you pass the name of that function just like you are calling a variable into it, something like this. And this is what actually common in most of WordPress today that people normally do. This is how you can create an action. Now, let me quickly explain init hooks. What init hooks means is that anytime something instantiate like this is actually going to call that function immediately. That's about init hooks. So you can have your init hooks in your filter. You can have it in action. Don't forget, this is the hooks and this is the callback function, and this is the type of hooks that we're trying to call, which is what is an action. You understand? I think, yeah. Okay. So let's go back here. That's that about action. Then there is filters. There's filters. Before I actually go to that, another thing about action is that there's something called priority. Priority. For example, let me just put something like 10. Yeah. You see, there's priority when calling function in WordPress. For example, now I can have a priority of 1. I can have another function with priority of 10, priority of 9. So the higher the number of your priority, the higher the number of your priority, the order in which WordPress will call your function. Assuming you give a function priority of 1, that means WordPress will call that function at the level of 1. If you give that function priority of 10, WordPress will call it after some function has been called before it's going to call it. Like priority in hooks is just like an order of calling. You understand? From like let's say ascending or descending, like from 1 to above. That's just about priority. And let's assume that you want to pass a parameter. You can also pass a parameter to your function. Like for example now, the next thing is like the number of parameter. Let's say I want to have like 2, 3 parameter. Let's say I want to have 2 parameter. Just put 2 here. Then that means this function should be expecting like 2 parameter, which means I can have something like name. I can have something like let's say function. So if you put 3 let's say let me say auto. I put like 3 parameter here. Automatically there's going to be an error. Why is that? Because for this parameter I specify 2, not 3. You understand? And it expects my function to only have 2 parameter. You understand? So if you want to have like 3, make sure you put 3 here. If you want to have like 4, make sure you put 4. You understand? And sometimes you can also use like 1 and make your parameter to be something like an array. That's about action. Now, so action and filter, they are just like the same thing. You understand? They are just like same thing. They're just like same thing because if you actually look at filter A, you see that they look alike. You get it? They look alike. So if I want to call it a filter now, you just change this to what? Filter. Simple. That's what it's about, filter. But don't forget that filter normally return what? Something like a return like this. Filter normally return stuff. Let's start from do something. Let's say there's this call hook we call admin filter test. Now this is the function I want to cover. And need and I can say minimum WP. Now this, if you actually want to go and read this stuff, this something about this hook. This hook normally receives something like a text. Then it will return text again. But sometimes you might not actually pass the text. You can just give it something. So if I come back to my WordPress here, if I refresh, so what happened is this. Can you see this, please? I don't know. Maybe you see. How many of us normally notice this? Like what used to be there before? It's just something that used to be there is something called thank you. You just say thank you WordPress. I don't know. Let me comment this so that you see what is there that I change. Okay. Do you know the reason why it's empty? It's because I have a function that has already override the text, but I don't return anything. So let me just comment this filter. Let me come back here. Can you see? Thank you for creating with WordPress. Now I want to change that text. So what I need to do is, don't forget, filter modify. I don't know, maybe you understand me. Filter normally modify something. So if you want to modify most of the stuff in WordPress, we normally use filter to modify. So I'll just uncomment this part, then uncomment this. I change it to this, then by refresh, it's changed to this. Do you understand? Is there any question about that? Like, if you have any question, this is how you can customize this part most of the time. Is there any question about that? Can I continue, please? Okay, cool. Yeah. So, what again? Let me check my slide. So, you see, there's this filter here. Let's try this filter and see what will actually happen. Um, the title filter bar. So, let me write another function. Function. Then let me say change title text. Actually, later it's going to receive a text as then I'm going to call the hard filter and title and the name of my function. The name of my function. There's actually one issue here because we are dealing with different functions and I need to do the same thing from that, or I might just leave it because I just use that if statement to explain how you can check in if a function has already existed before. You understand? Let me do this. Now, what does this hooks mean is that if you go to your post, let's say I go to post or post here, um, let me create a post. It's so slow. I don't know why it's taking long. I want to explain how the title hooks work. Is that anytime you create a post and user wants to fill your post, this hook will modify the title of your post. Let's say I create something like WP as the name of my post, then I publish the post. So if I check that post, I many of us notice what happened here. Okay, let me uncomment the hook and see what happened. Can you see? This is the title of my post. I want to modify that title. I'll just call the hooks like this. Then I can say return. Let's say hello, my people. And I can just concatenate the text. So you see, this text is the title that is coming. If I go back here and refresh, can you see? I think we understand how hooks work now. That's how like filter data hook works. So there's a lot of hooks that you can actually call when it comes to like something like modifying your plugin. Then that's about that. So don't forget to okay, just have something like you can add a priority maybe like 10, something like that. So uh, that one would actually not affect to still call the function. And don't forget what I actually explained about um, the priority just call that further calling the function. So that's another thing we're going to be looking at is uh, so how can you remove an hooks? Let's assume that you have a hooks, maybe it's a filter or it's an action. So how can you remove that kind of hooks? So it's by calling remove. You use add to add that hooks. So you can just go to your uninstall, then you do remove filter. What's the name of the filter that we have? You can just call the function come here, then go to uninstall here. Just paste the name here. Then by the time user uninstall your plugin, it will automatically remove that filter, and that filter will no longer affect the website anymore. I think you understand me. So that's that. So if there's any question about action, hooks, and filter, you can just ask now before I move to the next stuff. Okay. So there's one question about what business has post got to do with plugin. Yeah, there is there's no business that post has to do with plugin. But actually, I'm going to explain. Okay, using hooks. Yeah, like by the time we got to custom post type, I will explain some stuff. You see, there's something that you can actually do it in. I mean, you can actually do it in plugin. Though you can do it, but doesn't make sense for you to actually do it in plugin. But you need to do it in Teams development. For example, now create a widget, and that's why I don't actually bother to include create widget inside plugin, because if you are creating a widget, it has to do with Teams. You understand? If you are creating a widget like create widgets, there's widget space. You understand? All those parts they have to do with Teams. Now talking of uh, post has to do with plugin like hooks. There's a lot of things that when you like when you render your post like this, there's a lot of things that normally come like there's title, there's content, right? Now let's talk of maybe you want to modify that content, how it looks. Okay, let me cite an example. I don't know if you guys have been on Niger Loaded website. There's this plugin they are using for share content. I don't remember the name of the plugin, but I want to remember the name of the website. So that website they create the plugin, and the way they achieve it is that they use hooks to modify content so that after the content, that share plugin will be showing. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you understand me. I think I answered your question. Um, Hello. I think some. Please, you can actually mute your mic if you don't have something to like say. Yeah, thank you. So that's that about hooks, action, filter, everything. Because most of what we're going to be doing in this event, we're going to be calling like action hooks, filter hooks. That's why I need to explain something about that so that you guys will actually understand how it works. You understand me? So, okay, maybe like if I remember the name of that plugin, I will actually share it with you guys because that this is the exact method that they use to achieve that stuff. Though it's not good for you to just build a plugin, they now called like content hooks that that stuff should modify like claimed content. It doesn't make sense. But if it's actually for your own personal website, you can actually call it to modify your content or to modify your whatever you want to actually do. So the next thing I'm going to be talking about is let's look at how Hello Dolly plugin works. Let's look at how Hello Dolly plugin works. So from there, I think maybe I'm going to I don't know because of time. We don't actually have much time. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to stop there, or we look at shortcodes. So how does Hello Dolly plugin works? Let me go to my plugin. I'm coming. Go to plugins. Now let's activate Hello Dolly. Wow. Wow. We have one issue with Hello Dolly. Well, let's look at that. Tell me, it's said there's one issue at line 101. Let me activate it again. Okay, it works. Now, there's one thing. There's one thing I read that Hello Dolly is the most unwanted plugin in a whole WordPress ecosystem. I don't know why, but I believe many of us also do like automatically once you once install plugin like this, what you do is just go to do clean up, uninstall Hello Dolly straight. But you don't actually know what it means, or I don't know, maybe you have read something about it. So according to the creator of WordPress, Matt Muttenberg and his friend, so they are the first person to create a plugin in WordPress ecosystem, and they name it Hello Dolly. So what Hello Dolly was just a lyrics of the music. Hello Dolly was just a lyrics of the music. They gather the lyrics together. So that's why anytime you refresh, you get to see new lines of the music. Like you see that if you look at this side now, you see show me different lines of that music. And I don't know if you have read the I've actually cleared the description. let's read the description of that plugin. You see, this is not just a plugin, it symbolizes the hope and enthusiasm of an entire generation summed up in two words, song. Most famous by, that's the name of the person that sang the song. Then when activated, you will randomly see a lyric from Hello Dolly in the upper right of your admin screen. But most of us, like what we normally do is just go straight to plugin, uninstall it and some other plugin that we don't want. But it's just a kind of symbolized hope that happens in the whole WordPress ecosystem. So let's go back there. Now this is the whole lyrics inside the Hello Dolly. This is the whole lyrics. This is the whole lyrics. And what actually happened here is that you see that each of the lyrics start a new line. I don't know, maybe you noticed that. It's not like maybe they give them space. Each of them start a new word, a new line. Each of the lyrics start a new line. Then there's this function that we called in PHP that we call explode. So you see this explode, we automatically convert these lyrics into an array in which by the time WordPress keep instance like auto-load the plugin, it will be giving us different lines from that lyrics. And that's what actually happened, what they do here. Then there's this part of something here. Yeah, you see here they call what add action, admin notice. So you see this admin notice also is also a hooks and hooks in WordPress. You understand? It's also an hooks. You can also modify it and they write some kind of CSS to tie. For example, if I remove this CSS now, you see what is going to happen. If I remove it, see, you see where the Hello Dolly is showing. So they use that CSS to tie it and highlight it to the what? To the left. I mean, maybe I think left corner of the admin dashboard. So this admin edge is also an hooks. And from here, I believe using this Hello Dolly, I believe some of us can actually also come with little something about plugin without having any issue. So what you just need to understand is some of these functions like explode, what explode does. And I think they've already explained here, we split it into lines, like you understand? Then randomly choose a line. This is what happens here. You understand? Then they start calling it here. Yeah, that's what happened. That's what happened. Is there any question? Like, you can use Hello Dolly to also, maybe you're kind of someone like also like music. You can create your own lyrics, then modify entire Hello Dolly to your own taste, so that anytime you enter your admin dashboard, you'll be seeing different lines of the lyrics. Yeah, like one thing about that plugin is that it's very, very very, very light. Okay. Okay, yeah, someone is asking a question like, how about to create a WordPress plugin with Composer? Yeah, I believe some of us here doesn't know what Composer is, right? Let me just quickly explain a little bit. Composer, like for those who are into like for JavaScript developer, they have something we call npm, like for Node, in which you can create a package and upload it to npm.js.com. So PHP also have a kind of an ecosystem in which you can upload what you build as an open source to, and that's something called package.com. You understand? They have this ecosystem where you can build package to, then people get to use it. Now let's assume that will now be something there. How can you install it? One way you can install it is by using something called Composer. You know, if you're a JavaScript developer, by the time you install Node.js, Node will come with some package that we call npm, and the npm is something that you can use to install Node.js package. So, but PHP use Composer to install any package that you want to do. So if you want, if you want to install Composer, you just go to there. I think composer.org or something. Let me just search for it on, yeah, yeah, getcomposer.org. This is where you can install Composer. You can go to the documentation, then install it. Now, let's assume that you want to use Composer inside your package, right? So all you just need to do is go to uh your folder. Let me just go to it. Um, the BP content plugins, then this WP, then open it using any command tools that you use. If you are kind of like used to maybe you are using macOS, any kind of command tool that like you like to use. Most of the time I prefer to use Git bash. So just do composer init. So this will automatically init composer inside your plugin. You understand? Because it's going to create something like composer.json file. Yeah, I think we have one issue. Okay, I don't remember something. I think some, yeah. You need to specify something here, like the name of your plugin. Let's say main WP. Yeah, it should work. It's been a long time I used Composer to create a package. Yeah, can you see now? We have composer.json file. Can you see Composer here? This is it. Then you can now configure your Composer. You understand? You can configure it. There's a lot of stuff that you can add to your Composer.json. Now, what of like maybe you want to install external package from PHP? So you just run the normal Composer stuff for like let's say you go to package, then I want to search for this package, send jam. So this is send jam. So all you just need to do is you see composer require, just copy this, then go to your inside your your project, then you can just paste that and install. Though I don't need it. You understand? I don't actually need the package, but I try to explain how you can install a package inside your, because there's this plugin that I'm using. I think this WPSI plugin. You see that this WP also have what composer. And you see, like it have composer, there's autoload. You need to have autoload here. So one thing is that if you are using, they're kind of like having using composer, you need to autoload your package for Wordpress to be able to use the package that you are using, that you want to use inside your plugin. You understand? So, like, is there any question? Any question? Any question? Any question? If there is no question, I think we're supposed to end this meeting by 11:30. So let's look at the last part for today, shortcode. So what is shortcode? I believe many of us are familiar with shortcode. If you are from family of WooCommerce, you should have used shortcode before. If you are from family of contact from 7, I believe you are familiar with shortcode. So how can you actually create your own shortcode where user can use? And yeah, this is it. So uh, I'll just have to copy something from here. You just have to copy this function. This is how you can actually register your short code. Let me come here, paste it here. Let's say I want to name my short code. Now, you see that short code is not using hooks. It's because like short code have nothing to do with hooks in WordPress. And that's why we are not using hooks or filter or whatever or anything that has to do with hooks. You understand? Short code has nothing to do with that. And that's why we're not using hooks. So now I just change my function because I want to stick with one previous, which is MWP. Then copy this function, paste it here. Now you see this one is going to be the name of your what? Of your short code. For example, what do I want to name my short code? Let's say min WP. This is my short code. So now I can come here. You see the content from here is null, right? But let me modify my content. Let's say content equal to H1. Welcome to WP. Now, this is how you can create what? A shortcode. Now, how do you now use your shortcode inside your WordPress? So you can go to your post. Let's go to post. Let's do edit. Now, inside your block, you can just open this. This is how you can use what is this called? Shortcode. Just say WP like this, and this shortcode. Simple. Sometimes some people normally do something like this. You get to do this if you want to put a content inside your shortcode. But if you are not doing that, just leave your shortcode like this. Update your content. Then let's view our content. This is my shortcode. Do you see that? I don't know. Maybe you guys can. Yeah. Like the reason why I'm using MWP is like I said something about previous. WordPress use previous for a standard coding. You understand? And you too that you want to do something on WordPress, you also need a previous. And my own previous that I choose is MWP underscore. You understand? Which means Mina WP. You understand? That's why I'm using that. And this is the short code. So if I can actually come back here, then let's say let's do something like this. I concatenate this. Let me come back here, edit my short code. Let's say I need to update. Okay, I have one error in my code. That's line 37. Oh, sorry, my bad. This is where the concatenation needs to be. That's why I can actually say. I need to refresh this page. It's working now. So if you want to put content inside your shortcode, so just put the content, then followed by the name of your. Let's update it. If I refresh, can you see? This is how shortcode work. But now let's look at the way WooCommerce normally do their own. If you are following the normal process of installing WooCommerce, by the time you are running your installation, on the fly, what WooCommerce will create a page for you called product, then automatically put short code inside uh I mean inside your the, the page that WooCommerce created. So that short code is what's this? WooCommerce used to render your product, your cart, your checkout, and some others like that. You understand? So you can also render, let's say, we want to render a page now. Um, Instead of us returning a content, we want to render a page or an HTML. So all you just do is come to your maybe your public and you create the file. Let's say index. I want to save this as index.php. You can now write your HTML here. Though most of the time you don't need to put all this because normally you already have the structure of HTML inside your WordPress. So what you just need to do is just write your own stuff like H1, welcome, welcome to WP. Then you can write the rest of the your content. So I, I want to get something. Yeah, I do remember there's this stuff that I normally write in Sublime, and it will give me some kind of dummy data like this. So let me just leave it like that for now. So then you come inside your this place, then you now do include any the name of the file index.php, and you do something called you call this function plugin directory. Yeah, let's see. Work. Now you see what happened. Okay, I think I have one issue. I think I use something related to short code. Okay, it should be part instead of plugin directory only. Yeah, let's try it again. Okay, yeah, it works now. The issue now is that the file is not found, so we do public / index and let's refresh. Yeah. So let's assume that you want to create a separate file for your shortcut. This is how you can actually do it. So the next thing now is that, which is going to be the last part, is how you can pass a parameter. Because there are some shortcode that you can actually pass a parameter to. I don't know, maybe you guys have done that before, but me, I've actually worked on something like that where I need to pass a parameter to the shortcode. So this is how it happened. I'll just have to change my code. Coming. Let me do something like this. I need to copy this part. And there's something that is missing, which is the attributes. So just okay, the attribute is here already. I think it's tag that is missing. Yeah. You just pass your tag here. Now you see, when you are creating something like a parameter, you need to give your parameter what's this called? Default value. You see, this title is a parameter. You understand? Let me just go to my index and say PHP and echo PHP try to let's look at what happened here first. Okay, let me go to this place, then say title. Something wrong. That's why I'm actually having an issue. Think I do forget most of it things sometimes. Let me just I don't know why it's not working. Yeah, it's normal how it's normally work. Okay, let's try this. Try this one. So let's say we have typed to just remove all. Tag. Okay, yeah, it's me. Yeah. Yeah, see the title. This is the first follow. Then if I come back, if I come here inside this place and say should be my title, then if I update, first this yeah, first if I refresh, yeah, you see that the variable change like parameter. So that's how you can actually walk through parameter inside your shortcode. So if there's any question, you can just have a question here before we go. You guys should ask a question. Okay. So if there is no question, you can just join the WhatsApp group to drop your question. So thank you guys. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoy the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mujib. It was really, really interesting. And there is going to be an assignment that we'll do. We'll just practice for practice. We'll edit the Hello Dolly plugin and change the lyrics of the Hello Dolly plugin to another song, maybe your favorite song. So edit Hello Dolly plugin, rename the plugin folder, change the author URI as he mentioned and showed us earlier, and then change it to a song that you like, your favorite song. Change that Hello Dolly plugin to display a song with the lyrics that you like. So Hello Dolly plugin is available at the WordPress plugin repository. Feel free to join the group and ask questions you have on the group, and we'll definitely uh, attend to all questions in the group. Thank you so much, Mr. Mujib. We really appreciate your time. All right. The slides would be shared on the group. The recording for today's session will be on the YouTube before Wednesday next week. All right, so we'll get to see the recording. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking our time to join us for today's session. Don't miss next week's session. It's 10 a.m. next week, Saturday, and we'll be doing the concluding part to the intro to WordPress plugin development. See you next week. Have an amazing weekend, everyone. Take care. Bye for now.